I'm Malcolm Gladwell. I live way out in the country. I drive everywhere. And you know what scares me? That feeling of finding myself stuck on the side of the road. But now, all of us can avoid that pain by getting our vehicle the part it needs before that breakdown oh no moment. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. Buying a car is easier with Navy Federal Credit Union's fully loaded car buying experience because now you can finance, buy, protect, and enjoy your purchase all through one convenient place. And with pre-approval in seconds, great rates, and 24/7 member support, you can cruise through your next car purchase. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission.
Open to the armed forces, the DoD, veterans, and their families. Credit and collateral subject to approval. Navy Federal is insured by NCUA.
At Metro by T-Mobile, there's nada yada yada. That means no contracts, no price hikes, and no surprises. We don't even hide what the lawyers make us say. We put it first. When we say no price hikes, we mean when you join Metro, your price will never increase for talk, text, and smartphone data. Our only exclusions are for limited time promos, free use charges, and third-party services. Nada yada, nada yada yada, nada yada, nada yada yada. Nada yada yada means wireless without the gotcha. Only at Metro.
Welcome back to the Bob Lefsetz podcast. My guest today is the one and only John Anderson. John, great to have you on the podcast. So tell me, how'd you cope with lockdown during COVID?
I got on with a lot of music, that's for sure. The day we were told to stay indoors, away from the chaos, I was doing a barbecue and I slipped on the top steps near where the barbecue is, and I broke my foot in two places. For the first 6 months of COVID, I was on crutches, but it made me want to go in the studio and create, and that's what I did.
And what did you create? And you did it alone?
Yeah, I create a lot of stuff. I called it the Opus, and then I shortened it up to Opus, and it's a combination of the miracle of playing all the white notes on the keyboard, because I can't play them both at the same time, black and white, like a normal person. So I just play the white notes, and I was playing this music, and I'd record little sections, and then I'd record another one, and then I'd record another one. And during the course of about 2 weeks, I'd recorded about 20 sort of musical events, if you like. And then I actually went on tour. I think it was with the Academy of Rock, these young teenagers. And we had a great tour, and we caught COVID on the way home, which was crazy. But that's the way things happen. Expect the unexpected. But the remarkable thing about working with teenagers, you feel young and vibrant until somebody does a selfie.
Or when you look in the mirror.
And say, wait a minute.
You got a couple of things going on here. Tell me about only being able to play the white keys and not the black keys at the same time.
It's just one of those things. I never learned to play the piano. So I sort of made it up, and I just used the white notes all the time. So it works for me, and I tell a story that when I was doing my solo show, halfway through it, I'd start playing the keyboards and singing along with the keyboards. And I could never sing with the piano. I played the piano, but could never sing with it until I actually broke my back. I know it's a strange...
Yes, but generally speaking, we're in California.
Are you in California?
Yes, I'm in L.A.
Oh, great. I'm Central California.
And how'd you end up there?
Well, it's a nice story, actually, because I came to work and live in L.A. some 30 years ago, doing an album called The Big Generator, which was one of those experiences that I'll never forget. And it just happened that I was working on an album at the time called Toltec, which not many people know, which is my invitation to make music about the Native American character energy that they are. Wonderful people, the indigenous people of this part of America. And so I was making some music, and I'd had a lot of meditation up until that point in time. And I kept seeing this beautiful girl jump up and wave at me halfway through the meditation. And so a friend of mine who worked at BMI said, I have a friend that would like to meet you. She actually writes and organizes the musicians with the company. What's the company called? So the problem, Bob, is
it'll come to you. It's a mental Rolodex. You got to go through all the pages.
No, I know. Imagine Movies. Imagine the company.
Right.
She worked for them, and she came to visit me for lunch, and I said I would prepare lunch. And thinking about it, I actually prepared local pizza, which was good. And she came in, and it was the girl that I'd been seeing in my meditation. And I remember just trying to play some music for her, but not quite coordinating the idea that I just met somebody I'm going to fall in love with and get married to. And I didn't tell her that, but it just happened that that's life. So my wife, Jane, and myself got married, and we've been together 30 years, and we still love each other like crazy. And
okay, a couple of things.
No. Pardon. Sorry?
Okay, I just want to stop you there. You had a meditation.
Yeah.
You saw her.
Yeah.
She walked in the front door.
Right.
A little bit slower. How did the romance begin?
Well, I looked at her and shook her hand saying, I love you. We're going to get married. You're incredibly beautiful. I said that in my head. I didn't say it verbally.
Oh, okay.
As I shook her hand, and I was mesmerized. I was totally mesmerized. And thankfully, she actually liked me. And then her sister lives in Central California, and we went up to visit the town of San Luis Obispo. And all of a sudden, I just fell in love with the idea of living in this part of the world. And that was it. And here we are still 30 years later.
Okay, but going back, she comes to your house to hear music. You know you're going to marry her. How do you actually convey to her? How does it become a romance?
Well, she said to me, last thing she said to me was, send me a cassette of some of the music, please, because I was working on this music. I said, yeah, I'd love to. So I sent her a cassette, but also a note saying, would you like to go to dinner? Would you like to go to the beach? Would you like to go and play tennis? Would you like to go and see a movie? I wrote about 20 things, that we could do together. And she got back to me. Here's my phone number. She phoned me up, and we got together 2 days later, and that was it. Love.
Okay, you're British. She's American. It's been 30 years already. But are there any innate differences in people in having a relationship with someone from another country?
Yeah, she's smart and I'm a dumb guy. I'm a singer. That's what I do. I'm a singer in a band.
Okay, so you wrote this stuff and then you went on tour with Paul Green's rock orchestra. Right.
Yeah.
How did that come together?
Well, I met Paul some 20-some years ago, actually. I was on tour with Yes for a little while, and we were playing at Philadelphia Spectrum. And after the show, came outside the dressing room, and there were some young kids, about a dozen kids with T-shirts, School of Rock. And I said, oh, guys, you're in a rock school? And they looked at me and said, yes, we are. And I said, what kind of music do you play? We like Frank Zappa, and we actually like Yes. And I thought, oh, young kids, how old are you? 13, 14, 15-year-olds. And then Paul Green came up, and he was the guy who Jack Black played in the movie. Paul Green comes up and says, hey, John, how are you doing? These are my students. Would you like to come to Philadelphia and work with these kids? And I said, I don't think so. And then a couple of weeks later, he sends me a cassette. In those days, we had cassettes, and it was the kids playing Heart of the Sunrise, which is an incredibly difficult piece of music, to say the least. And I called him up and said, well, you didn't tell me they were this good. And he said, listen, John, we're coming to LA in about 3 days. Would you get up and sing with the band? And I said, yeah, because they had a documentary that they were promoting in Los Angeles. So I said, yeah, I'll get up and sing. And it was great fun. They played it so well, the song. And then I struck up a relationship with Paul, and he invited me to go to Philadelphia to sort of hang with the kids and sort of teach them a little bit about stage presence and that kind of thing. So I did. So me and Jane went to Philadelphia in the beginning of February, which is the coldest month you can ever go to a city, But we just enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. And that's many years ago, 24 years ago. And so it's life, And then went on tour with them for a couple of short tours, one in East America and one in the West. And then about 10 years later, went on tour with them again. 10 years later, went on tour with them again. And so I'm doing a European tour with them this summer. They're just beautiful, young, talented people. What can go wrong? 24 young, talented people.
Okay. I know they're good because I once did their convention and they played a Frank Zappa song. Blew my mind they even knew it. But, okay, they come to you. They're teenagers.
Right.
It's bad enough being on the road with 20-something musicians.
Yeah.
What's it like being on the road with all these teenagers?
Well, it's great fun because they're young. They're fun. They're hopeful. They're grateful. They're thankful, and so on. That's what you are when you're young. When you're 14, 15, 16. There's no point in getting around it. They are youthful, joyful, and exuberant people, and they can play their instruments.
Okay, so let's just say you decide you're going to go on the road with them, which you have a number of times. How far in advance do you give them a set list? If you were to call it, how many songs do they learn? Is the set list set in stone?
Yeah, Paul Green is brilliant. He's a real character. And quite remarkable, teaching young musicians to get their act together. And he does it in such a great way. And he's the guy that says, do you want to do Close to the Edge? I said, yeah. Do you want to do On You and I? Yeah. Do you want to do Starship Trooper? Yeah. And, he just gives me a list. So I say, yeah, I'll sing them all. So I got into a thing this last tour we did in August just last year. I said, why don't we do some mashups? We could do, you guys can play Kashmir, Zeppelin, and it goes straight into Long Distance Runaround. So Kashmir happens, and then I start doing a Yes song. And then we started doing Eminem's first hit record. I can't remember what it's called, but it sounds so good when the kids play it. And that goes into Starship Trooper. So, it's like you mash them together. And we did
So if you're playing Kashmir, are they playing it instrumentally or are you singing the Robert Plant part?
No, I'm not singing it. The girl, Tess, brilliant singer, she sings it and I do some harmony and I'm playing bass.
Wow.
Very badly.
And what keeps you on the road at this point in your life?
The adventure of it, experiencing audiences. I just finished a tour with the Bang Geeks, a wonderful bunch of musicians who live out of Long Island area of New York. And somebody sent me a video of them performing, of all things, Heart of the Sunrise. This is about a year ago. And I kind of freaked out. These guys are so damn good. It's like note for note, exactly correct. They sounded like the Yes of the 70s. So, and it wasn't that they copied the music, of course, but they didn't sound like the record. They sounded like them performing it with a certain edge to it. So I thought about it for a month or two and called up, I got the phone number of the bass player who runs the show, Richie Castellano. And I said, Richie, how you doing? It's John Anderson. He said, hey, is that you, John? I said, yeah, it's me. Why don't we go on the road and do some classics and epics? Richie, he's still there. What I want to do is do 4 epics and the rest of classics. So we do Close to the Edge, Gates of Delirium, Awaken, which is Heaven, and Ritual from Topographic. And we can do them, and then we'll do a bunch of, classics like I've Seen All Good People, Roundabout, that kind of thing. So we put together the show. We just did 12 shows on the West Coast about a month ago, 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago. And that was great fun to work with these guys. So hopefully we'll do it every year.
Okay, you called yourself. Are you your own manager? How does it work?
I'm looking for a manager.
Okay, well, you put it out there at this point. Well, someone like you... Someone like you at this late date obviously has an opinion on managers.
I can't talk about it anymore. That's about it.
So what are you looking for?
Somebody who understands me, which is it's a hard gig, but very interesting.
And then who actually books the tours? You have an agent?
Yeah, we have an agent, really great guy, Steve. And of course, Paul Green booked the European tour. We start off in Budapest, and then we play in Amsterdam, and then we play in Madrid, and so on.
So when you play these gigs with either the Long Island Band or the Paul Green Band,
yeah.
What's the audience? Is the audience the fans from the 70s? Who comes?
Combination. You get a lot of, you get classic Yes fans, and they say, oh, we're going to go and see John Anderson sing again, which would be good. And, I always put on a good show whenever I work. I love it. And you get some young people coming to see these young artists, young teenagers. And they've already done quite a few festivals in Europe over the years. There's a classic Frank Zappa festival, so everybody goes on and plays Frank Zappa, So it's always a lot of fun to be around that kind of energy. You're not quite sure the audience are going to have a good time, because we have a good time. And that's the way I think about music. If you're having a good time, the audience will get it. And generally it happens that way.
And then, a lot of your success was with a band with multiple members, different songwriters, the 70s accounting. To what degree did you get ripped off, or you had a fair shake?
Ripped off? How do you mean? Sorry.
Financially.
Oh, yeah, that happens. Nobody escapes that event in the music world, shall we say, or in any kind of world. But it never bothered me that much. I have some funny stories about it. But to me, it was like, you reap what you sow.
Well, tell a couple of funny stories.
No. No, I can't tell you. Well, no, I can't think about it now. Sorry.
Okay. And after all these years, after essentially 50 years, how are you doing financially?
Doing good. We've got a lovely little house here up in the hills away from the village life. It's too noisy down there. So we live on this hill and surrounded by deer and antelope play, with the deer and the antelope play.
Yeah, I got the song reference. Yeah.
And I'm creating all the time music and stories and musicals and all this kind of idea of music being forever broadening your mind and thought and so on. I just feel that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Okay, so where exactly did you grow up?
Originally in Accrington, which is north of Manchester, 29 miles north of Manchester, a little town called Accrington, which is famous for, probably many things, but the main thing they were famous for, Accrington Stanley football team. They were one of the first 11 teams that created the first league in the history of soccer.
And to what degree were you interested in playing soccer?
Well, I was the ball boy, and I go and get the ball and throw it back on the pitch. I was the ball boy. But I wanted to play for Accrington Stanley. That was my gig. And I had a tracksuit, and I'd rehearse when the players were doing their, what do you call it, rehearsal? I suppose it is. When they kick the ball around on the car park, I'd be there dribbling away, and a little small. I was very small for my age, and the guy who was the trainer of Accrington Stanley, Leslie Cocker, who eventually became the trainer to England in the World Cup, said to me, John, you're good at dribbling, but you're too small. I think you shouldn't be playing this game. Just be a ball boy, okay? And that's what I was. I was happily told, you can't play for England. And I thought, okay, so that I'll join my brother's rock and roll band. He had a rock and roll band called The Warriors. And there were two singers, him, my brother Tony, and this guy called Charlie, who actually gave up singing in the band and became a hairdresser. And it just happens to be that at that moment in time, the Beatles had released a song called Love Me Do. And Tony, my brother, he sang all the Elvis Presley songs in the band. And I joined the band and started singing. Who's that guy with the dark glasses?
Roy Orbison.
Yeah, Roy Orbison. I did all his songs because I'm an alto tenor, you see. Crying.
Okay, let's go back a little bit. How many kids are in the family?
Three boys and a girl.
And where were you in the hierarchy?
I was third boy.
And what did your parents do for a living?
They just had a good time living, and my dad was he was a traveling salesman. They were ballroom champions of Lancashire, because there was a big cup on the over the fireplace, and they were happy, and it was a wonderful life. Because I worked on the local farm with my brother Tony since I was then 10 years old, 11 years old, and we sang Everly Brothers songs all the time. It was like, in all weathers, serious weather up in the north of England. You get a lot of snow, a lot of rain, more rain, and then a lot of snow. Then sunny days around Easter. It used to be beautiful. But we used to deliver milk the cows, shovel a lot of cow dung, what we call shit. A lot of poop. And I'd shovel it and put it in a wheelbarrow and tip it over into the tip. And all that was used for spreading all over the fields to make the grass grow. It's called, I can't remember what it's called.
Fertilizer.
Fertilizer. Well done, Bob.
Okay, so let's go back to that era. What kind of kid were you? Were you popular, good student, bad student?
Well, yeah, I was a nice guy. I used to run errands for my mom and do this and that and the other, go and play football up on the car park with local kids, and play cricket even on the car park with local kids. And one of the guys that I used to play against lived a couple of blocks down Water Street. His name was David Lloyd, and he actually played for England cricket test match. He's one of the most famous commentators now in cricket. Sweet guy, too.
So did your parents teach you to dance?
No. The ballroom dancing, is a different world. It was all that kind of Fred Astaire type dancing.
Well, did you have to go to them with them to the ballroom?
Yeah, we could go down the road and watch them dance around, and it was really beautiful to watch. But I was more interested that by the time I was 10, 11, I was interested in being in a band. So I joined the band, and it was called the Little John Skiffle Group. And I played the washboard, and we were very loud and noisy. But we were playing all American music, actually, a lot of classic American country music.
You're born just before the Second World War ends. So what was life like in the 50s in England for you?
Delivering milk.
Well, I mean, in terms of a couple of things. In terms of music, you look through a U.S. lens. We have Ike Turner, Rocket 88. We have Rock Around the Clock. Then we have Elvis. And then it's sort of a dry period with teen idols, although we have the Beach Boys and Four Seasons, and then come the Beatles. What was it like from a UK viewpoint?
Well, what happened was my brother had a motorbike. He actually, you ever see Marlon Brando in The Wild Ones? The Wild
Worse.
Yeah, that's my brother. He had the helmet. Not a helmet. He didn't use a helmet. He had a cap, dark glasses, and a big shield on this motorbike, a Sunbeam motorbike, which was like shaft-driven, noisy bugger. And he said to me, John, we're going to go and see the Beatles. They're playing at Southport. And this is like April 63. Yeah, around that time. I said, okay. So it rained all the way there because, where I lived, it rained all the time. This was North Sea or something like that. And so we actually went to see the Beatles performing in the Floral Hall in Southport in April 63. And of course, we'd heard on the radio, Love Me Do, and we all liked it, And we sang all the way to the gig and went in, and there were probably about, I'd say 500, 600 people, mostly guys and a bunch of girls at the front, mostly guys, sort of, teenagers. They were called, you were either a rocker or a hippie. These were sort of a mixture. But it was kind of, the energy was so powerful, and the Beatles sounded so amazing that you get involved in it and you start shouting and screaming after every song. They didn't scream in when they were playing. The girls at the front didn't scream. They just waited till they finished the song, twist and shout, and then, yeah, wonderful. And it was a revelation for me and my brother because we had a band. And so we learned all the first album of the Beatles, and we played that. And felt like we were in the Beatles, sort of. We even had a Beatle haircut. And we went to see them about 6 months later in Blackburn, which is only 5 miles away from Accrington, and got to the gig and couldn't hear them. Everybody was screaming. Everybody was screaming. You could hardly hear them. It was fantastic.
The band with your brother, were you playing gigs out? Were you getting paid, or were you just having fun playing?
No. We got paid. We played working men's clubs. Very important.
I don't know
Working men's clubs.
I don't know what a working men's club is.
Okay. A working men's club is when you go there and you set up your kit, drum kit and your amplifier. And then the first person that goes on stage in front of about 100 local people, all drinking a lot of beer. And the first guy comes on, he's a comedian, tells a few jokes, and some of them dirty and some not. And the crowd are getting, yeah, that's fantastic. Where's the stripper? So the stripper comes on and she does her stripping. And then we go on after the stripper. And the problem was that she would have to come past us in this hallway. As we were standing there to go on stage, she has to come past naked, and it was frightening. Very frightening for a young lad like me. Anyway, we go on and play 4 songs, then come back off, and then the comedian would go on, then bingo, and then another stripper would go on. That's a working men's club.
And do you remember how much they would pay the group?
£5, which paid for the petrol and some fish and chips.
Okay, so you're working. How long do you go to school?
Till I was 14, and then I said I've had enough because I wasn't learning anything. In the last 2 months that I was at the school, which is actually called St. Christopher's, which was kind of nice, that St. Christopher is the patron saint of travel, and that's what I did. I traveled. I'm still traveling now.
Okay, so you're 14 and you stop going to school. Your parents are cool with that?
Yeah, of course, got a job on the farm, helping to keep the ball rolling at home. And so,
Okay, you're working on the farm. I've actually worked on a farm, and it can be very hard work.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine you're working on the farm saying, well, this is my future. So what were you thinking in your brain as you're doing all this?
Well, obviously, we had the rock and roll band that we'd play every weekend. And then, I don't know, you don't think about much other than just hearing the next hit song on the radio, learning it and going on stage and playing it. And just getting into the idea of maybe one day we can have a hit record. And then this really happened. We were actually rehearsing in our little rehearsal room downtown in Accrington there. And this guy came up from Manchester. And I think he was... they call him Jack the Lad, a guy that seems to know everything. He came in and heard us playing. He says, I think you guys are really good. Do you want to make a hit record? And we said, yeah. And they said, well, next Thursday, can you come down to Manchester and play for my friends? I have a couple of friends who've got a lot of money and they can make sure you have a hit record. And I said, oh, that'd be great. And Tony said, yeah, that'd be really good. He didn't talk like that, but he said, it'd be really good. And the guy said, so this Thursday, can you come down to Manchester and play to my 2 friends? And my brother Tony said, no, I'm sorry. No, we're playing at Paddy Ham Working Men's Club. And the guy said, well, cancel it. Oh, no, I can't cancel that. We promised to go and play. And the guy said, well, screw you. I'll go and find another band. So he went 5 miles away to Blackburn and got in touch with a band called, I'll think about it in a minute. And Morton Somebody's 5. Anyway, they were called as something. And he went to them. And within 6 weeks, they were top of the charts with a song called, he actually could do it. In those days, you could buy anything, And it was Juliet, I think the song was. And such wonderful moments in my life.
Okay, so you missed this big opportunity. What's your first break, if there is one?
There wasn't one. I broke my... No, I didn't. Well, basically what we did was kind of cool because we decided to go to play in clubs in Germany and Scandinavia. It was the way to be able to learn your trade, if you like. You go and play in Cologne, Frankfurt, Hamburg, and then Helsinki. And you do 2 weeks in each city, and you go round and round doing that. And of course, that was an incredible time. It was like the mid-60s. There was so much music around. everywhere you looked and listened, it was great music. And we became a good band, at that time, I thought. And we were doing, basically you play from 7 till midnight and 15-minute breaks. And the manager of the club will definitely give you some pills to keep you awake. So we started on that train of, let's take a pill now, man, So, yeah, but you're not supposed to take it until later on in the night. No, I want to take it now. It makes me speed. It's called speed. And that's what we all did. And we did all these gigs and round and round and round, go around in circles. And then the greatest thing that happened was Sgt. Pepper came out. So by then we were on speed, marijuana. It's called hashish in Europe, and LSD. I said, okay, let's try this stuff. And then we put on Sgt. Pepper. That really blew everybody's mind in the world, I think, because it was brilliant. Just wanted to be a Beatle.
How did you get these gigs in Germany and Scandinavia?
Oh, there's an agent. There's always an agent. There's always somebody, you ask around,
Okay, you hear Sgt. Pepper, which really was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Especially there were no singles on it. It was a thing unto itself.
Yeah.
And you're doing these European tours. What's the next step for you?
Well, the next step was we played a show in Copenhagen, beautiful place, and we had to do this one more show before we went to the next town, which was Cologne, and then down to Munich, and then up to Hamburg, same thing. And I just happened to take a LSD test, and I went to see one of the greatest movies ever. It was Dr. Zhivago. So Dr. Zhivago, I was so in love with that woman, whatever her name was. Anyway, went to see that and then went to the gig. I noticed that everybody in the band had taken some LSD. So we'd look at each other. We're supposed to be playing music. We're standing there on the stage and there's people looking at us saying, well, come on then, get on with the music. And we're all looking at each other saying, how do we do this? We couldn't put it together, mentally. We couldn't put it together. It's just not possible. So the guy fired us and we went down to Cologne and carried on with doing 7 hours of singing and playing every night. And then one day I just had a musical vision. And I just had this idea. We were a pretty good band. I thought we were a pretty good band, the Warriors, And so I went to the bedroom and woke everybody up saying, come on, guys, let's rehearse, guys. Go away, John, please. They all said in unison, go away. But guys, we've got to rehearse, man. We can be really good. I've got some ideas. Musically, we could do a little bit of... So, John, will you go away, please? They said in unison. And I said, okay, I'm packing my bags. I'm leaving, which I did. I left. I got my suitcase and I went to Munich. And the rest is in my autobiography. It's a good story, though.
Okay, at what point in this story do you start playing original material?
Probably not until I got to London. A couple of great things happened where I had a visitation, where I was sitting in this beautiful English gardens in Munich, and I was mumbling to myself over and over, why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? What's going on? What's going on? And the voice said, John, nothing matters. And I thought, who the heck was that? There's nobody around me. I'm in the middle of a garden. And the voice said, John, nothing matters. Well, that did it. I said, oh my God, somebody's watching me or watching over me. What the heck is going on? I'm thinking. But something really beautiful happened that I ran to the apartment that I was staying in, and there was a telegram on the floor when I opened the door. The telegram was from my mum. And it said, John, there's a band in Frankfurt want you to sing with them. And here's the number. And that was it. It was like, somebody wants me. Because that's why I was so screwed up. I just thought nobody wanted me. But they did. And I went to work with them for 3 months. And then I went to London. And that's where I met Chris.
How did you meet Chris Squire?
Well, I was working in a bar over the Marquee Club, very famous club in London. Yeah. And all the people that played the Marquee came up to the club, normal. And I clean up and wash up and help around to survive. And, people like The Who, they wander in, have a few drinks. And then even everybody who played at the Marquee Club would pop up to the club. And you met all the greats of that period. It was like 68, 69. So I was there cleaning up one evening. And the guy that ran the club, a really nice guy, said, I know you're looking for a band, John. I said, yeah, I'm looking for a band. He said, well, there's a bass player over there. I think he might be looking for a singer. I thought, oh, okay. So I went over to this very tall guy and said, hi, my name's John. And he said, my name's Chris. And I said, so you have a band? He said, yeah. What's the band called? He said, Mabel Greer's Toy Shop. Oh, really? Yeah. What do you want to do? I said, well, I love singing and I love Paul McCartney, of course. I liked his voice and my voice is high like that. And he said, oh, what kind of music do you listen to, though? I said, oh, I love Simon and Garfunkel. I think Paul Simon's really got his chops together songwriting-wise, And he said, do you write songs? I said, well, I mess around with my guitar. I'm not that good. He said, well, why don't you come to rehearsals of my band, Mabel Greer's Toy Shop, tomorrow? And I said, oh, okay then. And before we parted, he said, why don't you come back to my apartment? We'll jam and we wrote a couple of songs. And I thought, this guy's really nice, And the following day, I went to the rehearsal place to work with his band, Mabel Greer's Toy Shop. And the drummer had left because he was getting paid because nobody got paid in this band. But he went to Paris to work in another band. So I got a copy of the I got a copy of Melody Maker and I looked for drummer, looking for band. And there it was. Has a Ludwig kit and a van. My name is Bill Bruford. I said, he's the guy. So we phoned him up and he came the following day and he joined the band. And then the question was, well, what are we going to call ourselves? Because Chris said, whoa, Mabel Greer's Toy Shop's pretty cool. And I said, no, the best band that I ever heard was an Irish band. They called themselves The. Do you remember them?
Of course.
I thought that was perfect. Very Irish. So we rehearsed and did a show. We did most of the show just doing a funky version of Midnight Hour.
And at this point, were Tony and Peter in the band?
Tony who? Oh, Tony. Yeah, Tony was the keyboard player and Peter Banks was the guitar player. Yeah, it's just the drummer left. How to get a thing going, But yeah, you believe, that's basically it.
So you play this funky version of In the Midnight Hour.
Yeah.
And continue. Where does it go from there? For
about an hour. We just had to make up time. We knew 4 songs. One of them I'd written with Chris that first night, and then another song that Chris had, and then we did Midnight Hour. It was just a tour. Not a tour. It was just our first show together, and we thought we were pretty good,
And how does it become Yes, and how do you get a record deal?
Well, that's the story. And it was just generally, okay, everybody put a name of the band in a hat, okay? Because I started to become the boss. They used to call me Napoleon because I was small. And so I'd organize. I said, okay, everybody write down a name. I wrote down World. Chris wrote down Life. It's got to be short. And Peter Banks wrote down Yes. And that was it, because we went through what we put in there. And we went, what's this? Yes. Is it the Yes? Peter said, no, it's just Yes. And we looked at each other and said, yes. That was it.
Okay, you have a name, you played one gig, long version of Midnight Hour. How do you end up getting a record deal with Atlantic?
Oh, that's another story. The great thing happened was Ahmet Ertegun is coming from New York to see you guys. That was...
Wait. That's a big thing. You're nobodies.
Right.
Who is the connection with Ahmet?
Okay, here's the story. So what happened was we were doing pretty good. We started doing gigs in and around London. We did some in Manchester, and then we did some up north and of England. And we got tight, and we started playing good. And, Bill and Chris were really rocking, and we got going, and got a phone call from our friend who ran that club, the Jazz Club, Chase. And he said, there's a guy who wants your phone number. We didn't have phone numbers. He said, can you phone him? He wants to see if you can play tonight at the pretty famous Speakeasy Club in London. And he said, they want you to play tonight because the band that's supposed to be there just got stopped from getting on a plane in New York. And we said, so who are we going to replace? He said, somebody in the family tree. And we said, what the heck's that? There's a band called The Family. So we went to the club and started setting up to do our little show that we had. And all of a sudden, people started coming in. There were all people. Pete Townsend came in, and a couple of other guys from big bands, and I said, "Who are we replacing?" He said, "Sly and the Family Stone." Oh, fuck. What are we going to do? Well, let's just play, man. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. And all the people, Paul McCartney all these people came, these droves of people came to see Sly and the Family Stone. So we did our show, we were kind of nervous and frightened, but we played hard and we got it done. A show and a midnight hour. Yeah, that'll do it. I can't remember the songs we were doing, but we were doing some good music at that time. We were doing actually variations on kind of themes like Yes Became Famous For, which is creating introductions to a song and then middle sections and building it up and, like structure, using structure. And it kind of worked and went down very well. And we passed a lot of joints around to make sure everybody was happy and stoned. Oh boy, what a night. And that was the beginning of our friendship with the manager of that club. And really sweet guy. And he was the one that got in touch with somebody at Atlantic Records. And they said, "We heard about what happened. You did a great job for Sly and the Family Stone." And Roy was the manager. And he said, "I think I might be able to get you to meet Ahmet Ertegun, and maybe you could be on Atlantic Records." And I thought, any record company will do. I don't care who it is, but we need to make a record sort of thing. Because I thought we were playing pretty good on stage. It'd be good to record some of the show, put it out as a record and see how we go. And we had a couple of songs that we thought were slightly commercial, but not really. And I think commercial became sort of dare I say, a nasty word in my mind. We're never going to be commercial. I don't want to be commercial. I'm too old. I was 27 years old or something. I feel too old. I don't want to be a pop star, sort of thing. So we carried along the train of writing music that became Time in a Word and things like that from the second album. I can't remember much about the first album, even though
Okay, I got a few questions about the first album.
Okay,
before
sorry.
we get there, Ahmet comes to see you, and then what happens?
Oh, I've mentioned this many times, and I'll mention it again. Well, Ahmet, incredibly dressed, very a Turkish guy, beautiful. He looked immaculate, like $1 million. And he was producing the great people. He was, at that time, he was producing Ray Charles and, gosh, I wish I could remember their names. I will do in a minute. All the great people that were on Atlantic Records. Unbelievable. And he came to see us. Anyway, we played our little 4 songs, and I went to the loo to have a pee. And Roy happily comes running in and starts to have a pee and said, "John, I'm really going to get this guy, this American guy. I'm going to make sure you can make a lot of money. I'm going to get you the best contract you've..." And at that moment in time, somebody pulled a chain in the toilet next to us, and out comes Ahmet Ertegun. Said, "Oh, well, that blew that, didn't it?" Oh, it's a great story.
So, Ahmet is interested?
Yeah, he signed us up for 10 years. At 3 points, whatever it was in those days. But we managed to slowly but surely get better deal along the way when it took us a couple of albums to make any sense about what we were doing. And then we did the Yes album. And that was really when we sort of felt we're in the game. We're in the game. We're happening.
Okay.
We're on tour.
Let's start with the first album, which is where I come in. How'd you decide to cover Every Little Thing by the Beatles?
Every little thing she does. It's a great song, and we did it very well. That's when Yes started to sort of expand an original song into something a little bit more rocking and jiving or whatever. Da-dum. But that was the whole idea. I think Chris was brilliant at letting me, listening to me and then letting the band try it out. Because, there was not doubters at all. They would just say, "John, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do this?" And I'd say, "Just try it out. Just try it out." So we had a song that I was writing, Yours and Otis Grace, and they're trying to start a beginning of it. So anyway, that's the third album.
So on the first album, you do that Every Little Thing. That was not, there are certain songs by the Beatles that are covered all the time. I didn't know another cover at that particular point in time. And you rearranged it and made it your own. I mean, it was just utterly fantastic.
Yeah, that was part of my experience of listening to, at that time, I was listening to a lot of music I hadn't got to Sibelius by then, but I'd listened to the Planet Suite and things like that, the very commercial symphonic music, and drag ideas out of that. And Uzi did that as well, King Crimson. They were doing all sorts of Stravinskyisms here, there, and everywhere. But every band started listening to the classic music that was written 150 years ago or 50 years ago, symphonic music, and they try to bring it into the modern rock and roll. And that's basically what happened. It was just the idea of structure. Structure will make it work. If you've got a good intro, you can always play it in the middle and then at the end,
Okay, but there are some originals on that first album I think are just great. Yesterday and Today, Looking Around, Survival.
Yeah. I love Survival. Survival. That's going to be my title of my autobiography. Survival and Other Stories.
So the first album comes out. I mean, it was like a mystery in America. I was actually turned on by my dentist, which is something that didn't happen back then. But the album comes out? What was your experience?
Do you know, I don't remember very much about it. I think everything was a blur at that time because you were doing interviews. People wanted to know what you thought, which was not very much, but just general people wanting you to. Great guy called Chris Welch. He was a big fan of our beginnings in the Melody Maker. He'd do interviews about this and that. And it's just one of those things. You pull apart an album, you've just made it, and then you look back and think, well, it wasn't that good. And the second one was Time and a Word. That wasn't that good either. You just go through that emotion of doing it, thinking it's really, really good. Oh, it really sounds great. And then you listen back to it and you think within a couple of 3 months, you're bored. It's not working. You're performing it, but you're thinking about the next step you're going to take. And that's been my juxtaposition as a singer in a band. I don't play anything. I just have to sing all the time and pretend I can play the guitar, which I could hardly play. But I was always thinking about, we got to be doing something better. And then people come into your life. I met we were doing a TV show in France, and it was so funny because we were told not to be too loud. Of course, we were very loud at that time. And so we started playing, I think it was Yours Not Its Grace, and the credits came up and they cut us off. We'd waited their whole day to do this song at the end of this. It was a sort of a game like Come On Down, that kind of TV show. And so we waited a day, makeup and everything to play it. And just when we started playing, it was too loud. So they faded us out and the credits came up at the end of and that night I met Keith Jarrett. And that
Really?
Yeah, because he was playing in a trio on the TV show. And he said to me, do you want to come and see I'm going to on the left bank, I'm just going to do a jam session tonight. And I thought, jam session, that's really cool. So I went just to see him. I sat by myself and he came in and started playing the piano. And the drummer was there playing the drums. And he kind of looked at the drummer and said, where's the bass player? And the drummer said, I don't know. I'm French. And so they're playing. And Keith Jarrett's just diving away on the piano. And I couldn't believe how good this guy was. He was 18 years old. And then the bass player came. He was 6 foot, so handsome. And he brought a real big stand-up bass. And he starts... So Jarrett's playing away with the drummer, and he starts tuning up his bass. And I can see Keith Jarrett going, what the fuck are you doing, man? We're playing jazz. And all of a sudden, the bass player went, boom, 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 boom. Brilliant. All of a sudden, he was locked in, and Jarrett screamed, and they carried on playing for an hour. It was like magic. You learn about jazz, real jazz, when you see that happen.
Okay. First album comes out, America, Almost No
that
Noise.
Was good. Yeah,
Time and a
America.
Word comes out. It's like a secret. You can barely find it in the record store.
I know.
Where does Brian Lane come in?
Well, we had a manager, Roy, who was really a great guy, just not working in tandem with what we were trying to do musically, say. And so we were just invited to meet this company that actually, it was the company that created a very famous movie called Platoon.
Okay.
They were pretty big in the business world. We were very lowly, and who are we to even go through their front door sort of thing. But we went through the front door, and then we were introduced to Brian, and Brian started to manage us along with other people. There was a lot of people involved. It wasn't just this band. And that was that. And from then on, it was just knowing that, gosh, we are sort of stable, shall we say, but a little bit awkward at times in where we're going musically. Who wants to go this way? It was that story when I went to say, come on, we got to rehearse, guys, got to rehearse. Felt like Pinocchio. Come on, you got to rehearse. Let's do this. And they say, not John, just leave us alone. What do you mean? So that sort of thing happened in a way that it just happened that I felt out of balance, if you like. And it's a funny way of thinking it, that I was in this speakeasy, and it was very early in the night. And I walked past this band. There was nobody in the club. I think there's 2 or 3 people drinking. And they were playing really good, but the guitarist was really good. And he was playing what you would call one of the most beautiful guitars I've ever seen. It was a Gibson, wonderful shaped guitar, and he was playing the hell out of it. And they were doing good music. I don't know what kind of music they were doing, but he was good. And I mentioned it to Chris that, where are we going musically? Because I don't know, and Chris said, well, we need to decide. Sometimes you got to change one of the guys in the band if things aren't rolling correctly, And I said, well, I just saw this guy in the band called Bodast. And Chris said, yeah, I know him. I've seen him. So let's try it out. So you try somebody out, and the shape of the band evolves, one might say, when another musician comes in. And that's when I linked together with Steve, and all of a sudden I was in musical heaven because we could write music together very quickly. With Chris, it was now and again music. We'd write something. But with Steve, it's like every day we're writing a couple of ideas, and more and more and more. So it was a spontaneous combustion of musical energy that got us into the fragile world.
Okay, so does Brian Lane come in after the first 2 albums? Is that approximately when he comes in?
Yeah.
Okay, Steve Howe comes in. How do you get rid of Peter Banks, and what does he say?
Well, of course, he was upset. I think I was upset anyway that we had to think about changing somebody in the band. It's just one of the things. You kind of live with it and sit down and say, well, what is the best for the future of where we're going? And that's what you do. And even talked to him about what he would do now. He had a couple of guys he wanted to work with anyway, so he wanted to go with this other band. And I said, yeah, good luck. What are you going to do? Good luck. And
okay,
and you get on with it.
The Yes album is a great leap forward from what had come before.
Yeah.
We have Yours Is No Disgrace, Starship Trooper, I've Seen All Good People. Did these all come from you now meeting and writing with Steve?
Yeah, it's a combination of, my suggestion was very simple. Let's get out of London. Let's go and find a farmhouse, cottage, rental, and we can be somewhere totally different than where we are now. And we found a place in Devon. We all went there to work. You're there, you connect, you become more than what you were before because you're getting to know each other's good parts, quirky parts, nice parts, whatever. But you're connected. And I thought that was the way to go. And have some great memories of being in that farmhouse, which Steve Howe lives there now. And the memories were really good because it was like very, to say the least, it was kind of jazz rock. We would go there, we would try this, we would try that. And the idea of working as a group became more like a family, if you like. Okay, we're here, we're stuck together. Somebody's going to make breakfast. That we had a roadie who made breakfast and things like that. But you're actually together for the first time without any outside influence. And that was really crucial for me at that time because I knew these were great, talented people. I felt very comfortable about writing lyrics and melodies. I was a melody crazy guy, Every time I heard anything, I'd start writing a melody in my head and singing ideas. So I felt very comfortable about where we were going, and it worked out. I said, basically, we'll learn all this music as well as the songs that we're pretty getting known for America. Every Little Thing, we still had in the show. These new songs, we should go on the road and play them as a practice to go in the studio rather than go in the studio and start off with the drums and the kit and the bit. No, I think we've got to play it in the studio. So the only way we can play it in the studio is go on the road as a band, playing some new music as well as this old music from the first couple of albums. And that was the way it worked. And by then, we had a feeling that we were getting great reaction from the audiences who were coming to see us again and again. So no matter if we went up to play Birmingham, you'd always see the similar crowd of people would come. And you just feel, you know what it's like, Bob.
Yeah.
You just feel that everything is happening. You go, well, this is definitely better than we were 6 months ago. And then we went in and recorded what became the Yes album, and then Fragile.
Okay, so you recorded the Yes album. In America, it was commercially more available. You didn't hear it on the radio. I know you were doing interviews, etc. What was your experience on the inside relative to the success of the Yes album?
How do you mean? Sorry, when you say
well, it seems artistically it's a great leap forward from the two previous albums, especially the second album.
Right.
And in retrospect, everyone can see how great it was. Did you feel from the standpoint of your band that, wait a second, we're blowing up? Or did you still feel, wait, we got a big hill to climb?
I think we were just feeling good about that. We had a really good album. We were performing it and audiences were great. The next step, I have to get myself in I can't say the word, chronological order after the Yes album, was to go into the Fragile album. And
right, but before we get to Fragile,
right.
How does Rick Wakeman get in the band?
Well, that was the reason we called it Fragile, was because being in a band was very fragile. Never quite sure what's going to happen next, and something was going haywire on the American tour. When we went on tour doing the Yes album, we were doing with Jethro Tull, I think. We were on tour and magnified in front of 5,000 people. All of a sudden, 10,000 people. This is you're magnifying your creativity, and how big can we get, and how big should we be, and shouldn't we have great lighting systems and things like that? And so you're just growing, and you're thinking, well, the music's got to grow as well. At that time, the Moog had just come out with a new system of Moog and the sounds you could get, and Keith Emerson was playing a Moog and stuff. And it just happened that we did a track, I think it was Yours No Disgrace, with the Moog theme and everything. And it just happened that Tony wasn't that interested at that time in creating other sounds other than the organ, which he played amazingly well. But it just happened that at that time, we'd actually done a show with Rick Wakeman's band. You probably know it, you remember the name, I don't. And I just thought, this Rick Wakeman, he's quite brilliant. And that was the next step. You're going to bring in another musician who's going to upgrade you musically speaking and sound-wise. And that's basically what happened. And we just got on with the next album, which, again, you call Fragile, because everything is so fragile. You don't know if you're going to be here today or tomorrow. There was just so much surrounding Yes at that time. It was pretty intense at times, and you just wanted to get on with the next piece of music.
Okay. You talked earlier, you're 27 years old. You don't want to be commercial. Suddenly, Roundabout becomes like this gigantic worldwide hit.
I know.
And I must say, it doesn't sound like anything else on the radio, and no one would have predicted it would have become that hit, but it becomes a worldwide hit. So what was your experience?
I remember we were in Lefsetz, Pennsylvania, rehearsing, and we went for a drive to go have dinner or something like that. And on the way there, Roundabout came on the radio. We'd never heard ourselves on the radio. And, hey, turn it up, turn it up. And then all of a sudden, the middle section of Roundabout wasn't there, and it went straight to the organ solo. And I went, wait a minute, they've edited it. Well, they could have asked. It's like, so they got a big pair of scissors and went, take the middle out. And it was correct, because it worked. And it was brilliant, and it sounded great. And it was just like all the movies you've ever seen of the band hearing themselves, or artists hearing themselves on the radio for the first time. It's freaky, it's wonderful, and you feel like, we've made it at last, we've made it. Little did we know,
Okay, it's an unbelievable success. Meanwhile, there's a change in the band, because we're all hungry for rock press at that point. Rick Wakeman comes out with 7 keyboards. He's wearing a cape. And then he goes on, I'm the only person who eats meat in the band.
Yep.
Were you all taking this with a grain of salt, or was everybody saying, well, he's kind of an attention hog?
No, he was Rick Wakeman. He was sparkly and capes. And And he played so damn good. He was quite brilliant, and is brilliant as he's proved over the years. He's played on so many records that are very well known, and you can't take that away from him. He's brilliant. He's Rick Wakeman.
Okay, so next comes Close to the Edge. This is really kind of a breakthrough in that there's one song that's a complete side long. Did you feel liberated by your commercial success and said, I'm going to do whatever I want to? How did you approach Close to the Edge?
It's very simple. We were on tour with Fragile, and no matter where we went, people played, especially the radio stations in university cycle. We go to university after university, do a show and go to the radio station, and they put on Yours Notice Grace, never don't think about making it short. It's 9 minutes long, it's like all of a sudden, wait a minute, FM radio, that's the key. That's the key. The key is radio can play your music now, because FM radio accept long form pieces of music, and they would play All the Heart of the Sunrise and all this kind of thing without a blinking of an eye. They actually played it. And I started talking to Steve because we'd sort of bonded pretty tightly about songwriting ideas and things. And we started coming up with an idea. I've been reading Hermann Hesse, Journey to the East, which is a beautiful book of enlightenment. And so I just started thinking, let's just go for it. You can only fit 20 minutes on a record because after 20 minutes it goes wonky, the sound, because it's vinyl, And that was the trials and tribulations of being in a band where everybody agrees and then doesn't really agree. And then you go sort of a left and then a bit of a right swing, and then all of a sudden we'd finished Close to the Edge, and I got a phone call from Bill Bruford. I'm leaving the band. I said, Bill, could you say that again? I'm leaving the band. Why? Well, I've had enough. Okay. What are you going to do? He said, I'm going to join King Crimson. Bill, you bastard. I didn't say that. But I just thought, what's wrong with us? That really freaked me out. I thought there was something really badly wrong with us. If he was going to leave after creating what I think personally is a wonderful piece of music, why did he leave? What was wrong with me? I thought it was me. I just thought it was,
Well, 50 years later, what was it?
Well, he wasn't getting on with Chris as much as I thought he was. He wasn't enjoying. Chris would say, "There's the beat," and Bill would say, "No, it's there. It's just to the left, about 3 inches to the left. No, that's where the beat is." I think they had a couple of jives like that in their recording, but I didn't take it seriously. I just thought it was just, people not quite understanding where the beat is. But God bless them,
Well, he had a peripatetic career, and then he ultimately retired. Nobody retires.
I know. I wrote a book. Well, it's life, he has had an exceptional life. When he was out there with his last band, I thought they were just so good. Can't remember the name, but very, very good. Because in those days, you sort of, I remember doing around that time, it was probably around the time of Fragile tour, or maybe 6 months or earlier, but we were opening up for the Kinks in a gig in Albany area, University of New York there. And the opening band was a band that we hadn't heard about called Mahavishnu Orchestra. And we were there early to sound check, and we knew Mahavishnu were going to do a sound check at 6:30 or something. So me and Chris stood there, and my jaw just dropped. I went, oh my God, these guys have got something. I could not believe what they had. Mahavishnu Orchestra was on another planet. And within 3 months, they were headlining around the world. It was like, wow.
So how does Alan White get in the band?
Well, that was that big problem that Bill had left, and I was in limbo. And Eddie Offord, our wonderful producer, dude, said, well, I know this guy, Alan White. And I said, Alan White, didn't he play on what was it called? John Lennon album. He said, yeah.
Plastic Ono Band.
Yeah. So I said, gosh, would he be interested? I wasn't quite sure if he would be interested, And he said, yeah, I'll get him to come down this afternoon, rehearsal place we had in Shepherd's Bush. And he came in, joyful guy, sweetest guy in the world. And man, he could play the hell out of the drums. He really, really could do it. And not only that, because we were going on tour in 2 weeks, he learnt the whole show in 10 days. Ridiculous. And he was my best man at my wedding. Really good man.
Stylistically, what was different having Alan in the band as opposed to Bill?
You know, I don't know that much about. There was less paradiddles. I don't know what to say. He was just so on top of it. He played it magnificent. A great drummer. There's no question. As Bill was, but Bill was always semi-jazz groove, whereas Alan was straight on it. You know, and he just learned everything and performed everything quite brilliantly on that tour. And we became fast friends. And I say, he was my best man.
So next is Tales from Topographic Oceans. It took Close to the Edge one step further. It's a double album, long song, ultimately controversial. Can you tell us about that?
In short, it was very well received by Yes fans. Very, very well received. I went through, I don't know what it was. It was, when I think about it, I was really scared about what I'd done. And I pushed everybody over the hill, pushing them up the mountain. Come on, everybody, we can do this. Come on. What the hell? It's only 4 pieces of music. What the hell? Sort of attitude, you know. And then as I look back over the first year and the terrible press that we got and the whole idea of the dream sort of fell apart in my state of consciousness at that time. And I had a rough time when that happened. And then, you know, we can leap from that moment because there was something going on that I just felt was wrong. And I could never pinpoint why things just didn't sail along so beautifully into the sunset. It just did not happen. But a lot of people enjoyed the album. And the interesting thing was that over the next year or so, I lost a lot of confidence in what I was thinking about music until I seemed to get my act together, and then we did Going for the One. I had a feeling that was a very important song. You have to go for it and make it right and make it work. So by the end of the 70s, I had to somehow struggle through a couple of albums and not really knowing where I'm going in the hope that I was going in the right direction. And then we did Awaken. And that for me was and is so important to my state of mind because it really rejoined the band and the Angels sang. It was just a remarkable feeling at the end of that album, having gone through a lot of doubt and fear and frustration. Am I doing the right thing? Am I singing the right thing? Am I saying the right thing? And thankfully, at the end of that period, the 70s, it was really a sobering experience for me to wake up and still dream.
Now, Rick left and then he came back. What was going on there?
Yeah, that was, well, we went through the experience of making an album with another keyboard player who was very, very talented, very, very strong in his jazz fusion concept, great player. He just had different, Swiss, so he has a different perception of where maybe I was going, or I thought I was going, or I was trying to go. I was just going through a very, shall we say, a difficult time.
Okay, so you have Relayer, not so good. You have Going for the One, which is a big comeback. Then there's Tormato, which is not as successful. Yeah. And then you leave the band. How do you end up leaving the band?
Well, because it had lost its balance. There was no balance. It was you know, the balance had gone, and I couldn't bring it back together. So that was the end of that. It was like when I came and said, guys, we got to rehearse. Oh, John, just F off, okay? Because that's what they said when I left the band in Germany. F off, very loudly. And then I said, okay, I'm going. And that's what I did. I just let go, you know, let go, let God.
You left loudly because you thought you could wake them up?
No, I didn't think about it at all. I just know that we were in Paris trying to make an album, and we brought in the wrong producer, and that was it. And then it just happened that Alan was out there skating, ice skating, or roller skating with his girlfriend, and he broke his ankle. That's it. Okay, home we go. And that was the end of that. It was obviously very disappointing for me because, as I said earlier, I really believed in everybody. And when everything falls apart, you think it's your fault. You have that feeling of, what did I do?
How did Roger Dean end up doing all that? He didn't do the first 2 albums, then he did all of them. How did that come to be? Except for going for the one.
Yeah, but he was definitely perfect timing to have an artist project the band. I'd say, all the paperwork in the office should be Roger Deanisms, which never happened. But the idea was there. We've actually got an emblem, and Roger creates it. God bless Roger. Steve Howe knew him, and he came along and he said, "What's the name of the album?" I said, "Fragile." And I just said, "Think of porcelain." And he said, "Okay." And he came back with this lovely, beautiful little world that looked very fragile. It's a great idea.
Okay, you leave, you're doing your own thing. How did you feel that the band continued under the Yes name with completely different people?
I'm not interested. I have no interest on any
I'm
level.
talking about at that time, because you ultimately come back to the band.
Only because it just happened, and I'll tell you this story, then I got to go about. But here's this: this is life. I was down in south of France, enjoying the wonderful, beautiful, beautiful part of the world, and I was working on a project that will eventually come to fruition. You tend to start creating stuff after a certain period of your career where you finish it and you put it to one side, and then you have another one and you put it to one side. So you finish it with a drawer full of things that you're going to do and finish down the line. And I've got a dozen of them sitting in a drawer over there in the studio here that one day I'm going to get on with them and finish them. And that's when you realize, okay, you're a creative dude. It'll happen when it happens. That became my flagship, it'll happen when it happens. And then I got a call from Steve. Oh, no, it was Chris. And Chris said, "I hear you're coming to London this weekend." I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm coming to London to see the family and everything." And I went to London, and Chris said, I want to play you something. And I said, "Oh, really? You've been working with anybody?" He said, "Oh, yeah, we've been working with Trevor Horn." And I said, "Oh, he's the guy that did Duck Rock with Malcolm McLaren. Very, very good album. He's a very smart guy. What's his name?" He says, "It's Trevor Horn." I said, "Oh, good." And Trevor Rabin's in this ensemble. We're going to be called Cinema. I said, "Oh, good for you." Anyway, he came by the house and sitting in his Rolls Royce, of course. And I came out to meet him and sat in the Rolls Royce with him. And he started playing me this 8-track of the music that became 90125. And I went, "Wow, this is so good, Chris. Well done." And it's called Cinema? He said, "Yeah, oh yeah, we're going to call it Cinema." Well, this is a great song, One of a Lonely Heart chorus. Song, no, not the song, the verse is not so, but the chorus is a hit, He said, "Yeah, we think it's going to be a hit." Then he played a couple of other tracks, and I'm just saying, "Man, this is so good." And Chris said, "Do you want to sing on it?" And I said, "What, you mean sing on it?" "Yeah, because like you say, it needs definitely needs a better verse. One of a Lonely Heart. Maybe you could come in tomorrow to the studio and sing it." I said, "Well, if I do, it'll sound like Yes." He said, "Yeah, that's what we want." And I said, "Okay, you got the gig." I got the gig, and I felt so refreshed that I was back in Yes. And that's the end of my story, Bob. But it was a good story because that album did great. Born of a Lonely Heart was a monster hit around the world. We played in front of 500,000 people in Brazil, which is ridiculously wonderful, along with Rod Stewart and lots of other big stars. But to play in front of 500,000 people, it's as far as you can see. And the rest is history.
Well, as great as Owner of a Lonely Heart is, the rest of the album is unbelievable. You have Hold On and Leave It.
Yeah, everyone a winner. And
Okay.
I got to walk in and start singing it and writing lyrics a bit here and there. Can I change the lyric here? "Yeah, of course, John. Do what you want." "Oh, okay. Thank you very much." And then all of a sudden I was 6 foot tall from then on.
Okay, the music was totally done at that point?
Yeah.
And were there any lyrics?
There was in Honor of a Lonely Heart, there was a song which was sitting in the track rather than sitting on top of the track. So I just said to Trevor Rabin, I said, "Look, why don't we just go da-da-ba, da-da-ba-da, da-da-da, da-da-da-da," because that's what the band was, jack-a-bunk. And he said, "Oh, that's good. Just write that down. Lose yourself. You always live your life." And he said, "Never thinking of the future." "Yeah, never thinking of the future." So, "Oh, John, get on with it." So I just got on with it, And then next one was another song, Hearts, another song. You start opening up and saying, "Yeah, well, this works beautifully. I'm happy to sing that." And Trevor Horn was very good, and everybody was so nice and happy.
Did you have any idea it was going to be as successful as it was?
I just felt that Owner was a hit. It depends if, of course, at that point in time, we had to make a video standing on top of a skyscraper in London, and MTV started. So everything changed in a way. So from that moment, I just felt, oh, I'm on top of the world. Thank you very much, God. I really be a better boy next time.
Okay, there was an amazing tour. Okay, and that's the first tour I've ever seen where the lighting rig descended to the stage at one point, certain arms.
Yeah.
Was that something you were involved in or somebody?
Well, originally it was the idea that I wanted to use, I'd seen Vangelis, which is another story of my life, I'd seen a photograph of him in Paris with laser beams, and they'd never been used ever. And he was the first guy to use them as a show. And I kept saying to the guys, we've got to get some laser beams, And that's when all the staging and design, because I was that kind of guy who always said, look, there's a lot of people way over there. When you're playing in front of 10,000 people, a lot of people are way over there. And they can just about see me. I'm 2 inches high. They should see a big spectacle of light and color. And that's another interview, Bob.
And then how do you meet Vangelis?
That's another interview, Bob.
Okay, then I'll ask you just a couple of questions and I'll let you go. Tell me about writing State of Independence.
Oh my God. As life would have it, I was told not to go near the band by Trevor Horn, bless him, when they're rehearsing new songs. So I was, okay, then I'll just twiddle my thumbs for a month or two, which I did, and started writing some song ideas that I had. And Vangelis was in Paris. So I went to Paris for a while. And then I went to see, in this Gothic castle. And they'd been there a couple of months and not much had happened. A lot of just wasn't happening on different levels. And then I was there. I came up with some ideas for the next ideas. And the following day, Trevor Horn said, I think the guys would rather you don't be here anymore. Don't be here anymore. F off. So I said, okay. And I went to Paris and went to the studio where Vangelis was. And I'm walking in and he's doing this sound. And I said, is the microphone on? He said, yeah, it's on. So I went over and started singing, trying to think of the song now. State of life, may I live, may I love. Coming out the sky, I name me a name. Coming up silver word for what it is the very nature of the sound, the game. And I went all the way through the song, lyric and everything.
Just came out of you just like that off the top of your head.
Just like that. And it blew my mind.
Okay, there was a little bit of adoption of that song by The Landscape, but ultimately on her first Geffen album with Quincy Jones, Donna Summer does a cover.
Summers. Yeah.
Which is a good version, but I actually prefer the version by Mood Food on the Mood Swings Mood Food with Chrissy Hine. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. She's great. But, Donna was brilliant. And did you notice who sang on that song?
Remind me. I own the album. I can't remember.
Here they go. I got to remember. Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder. Who's the guy in America's Got Talent? On the Ceiling, was it? Dancing on the Ceiling. Anyway, a dozen of the top singers ever sang on that song. And I feel blessed that I saw the photograph. But if you just Google Michael Jackson State of Independence.
Yeah, I'm seeing if I can find it right now.
They're all there.
Did you know that, Lionel Richie.
That was it, sorry.
Dionne Warwick, Diana Ross, Brenda Russell, Christopher Cross, Diane Cannon, James Ingram, Kenny Loggins, Penny Lipton, Patty Austin,
all the greats.
Michael McDonald, and Stevie Wonder.
All the greats sang on the song that I wrote. I'm so blessed. Thank you very much, God.
And then it also says here on Wikipedia, Summer's version is one of Brian Eno's favorite songs.
Excellent. Well done, Brian.
Okay. So did you know that they were covering it or just one day you got the record?
No, it's funny that our good friend Lee Abrams sent Quincy the album before Thriller. Because if you read that album, it's a carbon copy of, and Quincy always says it. Yes, John, we stole it, okay? Because they use voiceovers. Because in Friends of Mr. Cairo, there was voiceovers of Peter Lorre and all the greats. And then that's what they used in Thriller. Of course, everybody is part of everything. You know, it's just the way of the world.
And okay, so as you
Hold on. That was it. That's the end of my story, Bob.
Okay, I got one more question and then we're going to go. So, you know, you leave Yes, you work with members of Yes. At this point in your life, to what degree is it frustrating that you have to play the old music live as opposed to the new music?
Bob, you've said perfect question. I just came off tour with the Band Geeks. These Band Geeks are these 5, 6, sorry. You've been working with anybody? I said, oh yeah, we've been working with Trevor Horn. And I said, oh, he's the guy that did Duck Rock with Malcolm McLaren. Very, very good album. He's a very smart guy. What's his name? He says, it's Trevor Horn. I said, oh, good. And Trevor Rabin's in this ensemble. We're going to be called Cinema. I said, oh, good for you. Anyway, he came by the house and sitting in his Rolls Royce, of course. And I came out to meet him and sat in the Rolls Royce with him. And he started playing me this 8-track of the music that became 90125. And I went, wow, this is so good, Chris. Well done. And it's called Cinema? He said, yeah, oh yeah, we're going to call it Cinema. Well, this is a great song, you know, Honor of a Lonely Heart chorus. Song, no, not the song, the verse is not so, but the chorus is a hit, you know. He said, yeah, we think it's going to be a hit. Then he played a couple of other tracks, and I'm just saying, man, this is so good. And Chris said, do you want to sing on it? And I said, what, you mean sing on it? Yeah, because like you say, it needs definitely a better verse. Honor of a Lonely Heart. Maybe you could come in tomorrow to the studio and sing it. I said, well, you know, if I do, it will sound like Yes. He said, yeah, that's what we want. And I said, okay, you got the gig. I got the gig, and I felt so refreshed that I was back in Yes. And that's the end of my story, Bob. But it was a good story because that album did great. Honor of a Lonely Heart was a monster hit around the world. We played in front of 500,000 people in Brazil, which is ridiculously wonderful, along with Rod Stewart and lots of other big stars. But to play in front of 500,000 people, it's as far as you can see. And the rest is history.
Well, you know, as great as Honor of a Lonely Heart is, the rest of the album is unbelievable. You have Hold On and Leave It.
Yeah, everyone a winner. And
okay.
I got to walk in and start singing it and writing lyrics a bit here and there. Can I change the lyric here? Yeah, of course, John. Do what you want. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. And then all of a sudden I was 6 foot taller from then on.
Okay, the music was totally done at that point?
Yeah.
And were there any lyrics?
There was in Honor of a Lonely Heart, there was a song which was sitting in the track rather than sitting on top of the track. So I just said to Trevor Rabin, I said, look, why don't we just go da-da-ba, da-da-ba-da, da-da-da, da-da-da-da, because that's what the band was, bunk. And he said, oh, that's good. Just write that down. Lose yourself. You always live your life. And he said, never thinking of the future. Yeah, never thinking of the future. So, oh, John, get on with it. So I just got on with it, you know. And then next one was another song, Hearts, another song. You start opening up and saying, yeah, well, this works beautifully. I'm happy to sing that. And Trevor Horn was very good, and everybody was so nice and happy.
Did you have any idea it was going to be as successful as it was?
I just felt that Honor was a hit. It depends if, of course, at that point in time, we had to make a video standing on top of a skyscraper in London, and MTV started. So everything changed in a way. So from that moment, I just felt, oh, I'm on top of the world. Thank you very much, God. I really be a better boy next time.
Okay, there was an amazing tour. Okay, and that's the first tour I've ever seen where the lighting rig descended to the stage at one point, you know, certain arms.
Yeah.
Was that something you were involved in or somebody?
Well, originally it was the idea that I wanted to use, I'd seen Vangelis, which is another story of my life, I'd seen a photograph of him in Paris with laser beams, and they'd never been used ever. And he was the first guy to use them as a show. And I kept saying to the guys, we've got to get some laser beams, And that's when all the staging and design, because I was that kind of guy who always said, look, there's a lot of people way over there. When you're playing in front of 10,000 people, a lot of people are way over there, and they can just about see me. I'm 2 inches high. They should see a big spectacle of light and color. And that's another interview, Bob.
And then how do you meet Vangelis?
That's another interview, Bob.
Okay, then I'll ask you just a couple of questions and I'll let you go. Tell me about writing State of Independence.
Oh my God. As life would have it, I was told not to go near the band by Trevor Horn, bless him, when they're rehearsing new songs. So I was, okay, then I'll just twiddle my thumbs for a month or two, which I did, and started writing some song ideas that I had. And Vangelis was in Paris, so I went to Paris for a while, and then I went to see Yes in this Gothic castle, and they'd been there a couple of months, and not much had happened. A lot of just wasn't happening on different levels. And then I was there. I came up with some ideas for the next ideas, and the following day, Trevor Horn said, "I think the guys would rather you don't be here anymore. Don't be here anymore. F off." So I said, okay, and I went to Paris and went to the studio where Vangelis was, and I'm walking in, and he's doing this sound. And I said, is the microphone on? He said, yeah, it's on. So I went over and started singing, trying to think of the song now. State of life, may I live, may I love, coming out the sky, I name me a name. Coming up silver word for what it is the very nature of the sound, the game. And I went all the way through the song, lyric and everything.
Just came out of you just like that off the top of your head.
Just like that. And it blew my mind.
Okay, there was a little bit of adoption of that song by The Landscape, but ultimately on her first Geffen album with Quincy Jones, Donna Summer does a cover.
Summers. Yeah.
Which is a good version, but I actually prefer the version by Mood Food on the Mood Swings Mood Food with Chrissy Hynde. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. She's great. But, Donna was brilliant. And did you notice who sang on that song?
Remind me. I own the album. I can't remember.
Here they go. I got to remember. Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder. Who's the guy in America's Got Talent? On the Ceiling. Was it Dancing on the Ceiling? Anyway, a dozen of the top singers ever sang on that song. And I feel blessed that I saw the photograph. But if you just Google Michael Jackson State of Independence.
Yeah, I'm seeing if I can find it right now.
They're all there.
Did you know that, Lionel Richie.
That was it, sorry.
Dionne Warwick, Diana Ross, Brenda Russell, Christopher Cross, Diane Cannon, James Ingram, Kenny Loggins, Penny Lipton, Patty Austin,
all the greats.
Michael McDonald, and Stevie Wonder.
All the greats sang on the song that I wrote. I'm so blessed. Thank you very much, God.
And then it also says here on Wikipedia, Summer's version is one of Brian Eno's favorite songs.
Excellent. Well done, Brian.
Okay, so did you know that they were covering it, or just one day you got the record?
No, it's funny that our good friend Lee Abrams sent Quincy the album before Thriller, because if you read that album, it's a carbon copy of, and Quincy always says it. Yes, John, we stole it, okay? Because they use voiceovers, because in Friends of Mr. Cairo, there was voiceovers of Peter Lorre and all the greats. And then that's what they used in Thriller. Of course, before Thriller, because if you read that album, it's a carbon copy of, and Quincy always says it. Yes, John, we stole it, okay? Because they use voiceovers, because in Friends of Mr. Cairo, there was voiceovers of Peter Lorre and all the greats. And then that's what they used in Thriller. Of course, everybody is part of everything. It's just the way of the world.
And, okay, so as you
Hold on. That was it. That's the end of my story, Bob.
Okay, I got one more question and then we're going to go. So, you leave Yes, you work with members of Yes. At this point in your life, to what degree is it frustrating that you have to play the old music live as opposed to the new music?
Bob, you've said the perfect question. I just came off tour with the Band Geeks. These Band Geeks are these 5 players. 2 keyboard players, drummer, bass, guitarist. Unbelievable people, unbelievable musicians. Somebody sent me a rendition of Heart of the Sunrise again, with them playing it. And I just went crazy and said, I got to work with these guys. I got to go on tour with these guys and play all the music from the 70s, because that's the great music of Yes. And that's what we just did.
And do you feel frustrated that you can't go live and play your new music to a large audience?
No, eventually whatever I'm doing now will evolve into what it's going to be. And I have great feelings and dreams like any normal guy, and that these things will come to pass. And people will hear my latest work, and I have great dreams about it as well, where it's going to be played and so on and so on.
Okay, so as you and myself are in the sunset of our years, and you're a deep thinker, metaphysical guy, so what ultimately happens to us at the end of our lives?
Well, we go to the next level, the next level of consciousness. It's been well written throughout the ages, that we keep forgetting that we go to the next level of consciousness. That's all there is to it. Take it or leave it, buddy.
Okay, I think we're going to leave it there, John. I want to thank you for taking all the time. Tell us so much about yourself and your career.
Thank you, Bob.
In any event, till next time, this is Bob Lefsetz.